In this video, I'm going to review the best games of one of my favorite systems, the N64. I could review all the games I have for the N64, but it would be even longer than that terrible Super Nintendo collection video I did a couple months ago, and nobody wants like a 2-hour video of a collection, so decided to just pick the top 10. I don't think you'll see any surprises in this list. Think I might make another video later, like top 10 hidden gems for the N64 or something, but yeah, I just wanted to do a best list for now. So the first game is Mario Kart 64, as you can see. This came out in 1997, back when there were barely any N64 games. Like, you have to remember that, releases were really slow. It only launched with like 3 games in 96, Mario 64 Pilot Wings, and I believe Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. And, games came in really slowly. I remember waiting a long time for this game and Wave Race and GoldenEye back in the day. But yeah, in terms of the game itself, I think it was the first 4-player game for the 64. I could be wrong, but it's definitely the most prominent one. I think everyone remembers playing multiplayer Mario Kart. It was great back in the day, but actually, if you go back and play versus mode with 4 players, you'll notice that they didn't have enough memory to put in music, so you're just racing with all you hear is basically the engine noises and the items. There's no background music, which is strange, but in terms of the game itself, I wouldn't say it's the best Mario Kart game today, but there's something pure about this one. It does have the blue shell, but it doesn't appear often compared to the newer Mario Kart games, where you can basically just see like a blue shell flying over you every like 50 seconds, or not even 50, maybe like every 15 seconds. But there's no bullet bills or any really cheap items that'll like take you from 8th place to second in immediately. And it has a lot of memorable classic stages. It has, Toad's Turnpike, I think that's the name, where there are a lot of cars, and you're on a highway, and it's you have to kind of maneuver your way past all the driving cars while you race your opponents. They kind of do that, and they've done that in every Mario Kart game since, but they don't really include that much. It's easy to avoid the cars in the newer ones for the most part, so I thought this stage was the best of that ilk. So, and there's also like Wario Stadium with all those bumps. There was a shortcut where you could basically just jump over a wall and kind of skip half the level, but if you had an honor code with your friends of not doing that, then it was a really fun stage. They've done that stage. They've kind of redone that stage in subsequent Mario Kart games, but they haven't been that as good. The bumps are a lot smaller, and I don't know, it seems kind of like babyish to me. So, yeah, I don't have too much more to say. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone has played Mario Kart by now. There are a lot of shortcuts in the game. I mentioned one earlier in the Wario Stadium. A lot of cheap ones that'll make you like skip laps instantly, and kind of you can jump into the water and skip half the stage, and it's great in that respect. Especially if you race someone who's never played the game and you just fuck with him. Maybe I'm just weird, but that's something I like to do. Yeah, that's about it for this game. Next up is Paper Mario. Still got the box for this. I think this came out in 2000. It was like at the tail end of the N64's life. It's basically a spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG, though not made by Square, obviously. They had a feud going on back then, so yeah, anyway. So this is basically, like I said, like Super Mario RPG, where you control... Well, it's in paper form, as you can expect. As you can probably see on the box art, actually. They're pretty interesting art style, kind of paper cutouts. In terms of the actual mechanics of the game, it's like Super Mario RPG in that there's like an active... I don't know the name of it, but it's like an active battle system where you have to time your button presses as you hit the enemy, and you'll do more damage that way, which is a lot more engaging than most RPGs. I'm actually not an RPG guy myself. I'll only play a couple. I'll play like these Mario RPGs and like Pokemon and stuff like that. I don't know. RPGs are usually slow and boring in my opinion, so whatever. And this is the perfect system for someone like me, since this is basically only one of two good RPGs on the system, the other being Tactics Ogre. But yeah, this is a really good game. It has a really, really nice localization. They have lots of puns and like witty dialogue, and it really shows. This was back in an era when localizations were for the most part terrible. There are some good ones like Metal Gear Solid and Earthbound, which came maybe 6 years before this game, but then there are also some terrible ones like Final Fantasy VII. As popular as that game is, it had a terrible translation and localization, so gotta give props to Nintendo for this one. Also, Pokemon was kind of spotty, like with Youngster Ben or whatever. The shorts are comfy and easy to wear. That guy, kind of weird lines like that. But this is a really like solid game. Story, not great, but you play it for the dialogue and stuff like that. So, yep, that's pretty much it. Number 8 would be Pokemon Stadium 2. You might be wondering why I picked this game in a top 10 list, but hopefully I can change your mind. So for me, I think this came out in 2000 or 2001. I can't really remember. I want to say 2000, but can't say for sure. By then, I was probably 10 or 11, and Pokemon was dead in my region. I know in a lot of other areas it was still like up and running, but in my school we were kind of done with this series. But this is still a really good game. It's basically like Pokemon Stadium, except as the Gold and Silver Pokemon 2. And I think this was back when Nintendo was they kind of had some shame in the fact that this is only a battle simulator, and so they tried to pack as much content as possible, unlike in Pokemon Battle Revolution, which is an abomination, and they at least tried in Pokemon Coliseum with a story mode. But anyway, this is just a really good game. It's it has a really good battling. I wouldn't quite say it's flawless battling. There's some instances where the AI cheats. Like they usually know when you switch a Pokemon and they act accordingly, which is annoying. And this might just be anecdotal, but I feel like when they use low accuracy moves, they tend to hit frequently. Like when they use Thunder, it barely ever misses, which is annoying. That could just be me. Just being whiny, but I don't know. And in this game, obviously you could transfer your Pokemon from the actual Game Boy / Game Boy Color games with the transfer pack. But if you didn't have the games, you could still rent Pokemon, unlike in the subsequent Pokemon battle simulators. And it was just a really great game. They added a lot of modes. Like there's this Challenge Cup mode where they kind of give you random Pokemon and you have to win an entire league with those Pokemon. So that's a mode I still play to this day, just because I don't really play the old Gold and Silver and Red and Blue games. I just play the newer ones, and since I don't really have any Pokemon in those cartridges anymore, I'll just play Challenge Cup, or I'll play another mode and just rent some Pokemon. Or if I'm really, really bored, I'll use a Game Shark and hack some good Pokemon just to play. But yeah, the thing that I do like about this game is that for the most part, the AI is smart, because in the Game Boy games, and it still kind of exists today, when you battle Pokemon, They kind of use random moves. They don't really, like, if you're facing a Pokemon that could easily finish you off. They usually won't. They'll use like Tail Whip or something instead of giving that last blow, which is annoying. And they'll use Toxic on your Steel Pokemon, which doesn't even affect you. They'll keep using it. I don't know, it's just really glitchy like that. This game, for the most part, they use the right moves, and I like that aspect of it. It's if you don't battle competitively with real people, this is a pretty good alternative. And another mode I liked were the mini games. They're kind of simplistic. I'm sure you've already played these by now, but basically there's one where you're like a scyther and you have to time your chops correctly to hit the center of a log, and I don't know, they're kind of neat distractions. I wouldn't play them single player. That's kind of sad, but if you have people over, they're pretty fun. So that's about all I have to say about this one. Next up, another kind of odd choice, Mario Party 3. The series has sucked for a long time. 4, 5, 6, and 7 were all pretty mediocre, some worse than others, and 8 was just horrendous, as I said in my Wii review video. But Mario Party 3 is a great game. It's the last great Mario Party game. I like all three, but I feel like this is the most complete just because it has the most mini games. And if you're playing like a 50-turn mini game or a 50-turn session of Mario Party with your friends, you definitely don't want you don't want to play the same mini games 2 or 3 times, which is basically what happens if you play Mario Party 1 or 2, and to this game to some degree. One thing I will say, well, first I guess I should explain what this game is in case people don't know. It's kind of like a board game where you all roll dice, 4 players, and after you each roll, you play a mini game, and you get 10 coins if you win the mini game, and collect stars along the way, and whoever has the most stars wins, and after a set amount of turns. But one thing I will say about Mario Party 3 is that stars are really, really common, just because they made the magic lamp really cheap in this game. They made it 20 coins, and Mario Party 2 was 30, and that's basically how you can get a lot of stars really quickly. Just keep going to the store and just buying magic lamps, assuming you're pretty good and can win mini games and earn the right amount of coins. But this is a really, really fun game. It's a great multiplayer game. Still holds up today. To this day, I've played a few 50-turn games within the last 6 months with a few people. So it's a really great game. Next up, number 6, Star Fox 64. My introduction to this game was in a promo video from Nintendo Power. I'm sure many of you have seen it. It's really, really cheesy. It's a video where it starts off with representatives from Sony and Sega, who were their competition at the time, parachuting to the Nintendo of America headquarters, and then they disguise themselves and enter the building as pizza delivery guys, and then when the Nintendo representative opens the door, they gas him because there's gas in the pizza box or something crazy like that, and they find out that Nintendo has been developing a Rumble Pack, and it blows their mind, and it's really funny. I don't know if I can link videos on YouTube, but I will. I'll link it in the notes if possible. It's a great video. Definitely a product of its time, mid-90s. But in terms of the game itself, it's just a really, really great shooter. For my money, the best rail shooter. Not counting something like Rez, which is good for other reasons. But compared to something like Panzer Dragoon Order, I think it's not even close. This game is just a really, really fun, shooter where, with interesting bosses. Nintendo's really good at making boss battles, and it really shows in this game. The dialogue, obviously very memorable, maybe not for the best reasons, like do a barrel roll and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the voice acting in the 3DS remake. I don't think people will be pleased if they change the voices that much, but still can't wait to play the new one. And it's kind of sad that this is the last good Star Fox game. There have been many more. There's Star Fox Adventures, which kind of introduced this furry aspect to the series that I don't like with Crystal, and there's Star Fox Assault, which was oddly made by Namco. For not sure why. It was an okay game, not great. It's not really what you expect from a Star Fox game either. There's also Star Fox Command. I didn't really like that either, even though it was made by one of the Star Fox creators. I just want a pure, shooting game, a spaceship shooting game with like an occasional tank level or something like that. And they haven't done it for some reason. Still hoping that they do though. Getting into the top 5. Banjo Kazooie, still have the box for this. Have the box for the remaining 4 too. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but I also got a promotional video from this too. This one isn't quite as goofy. It was narrated by John Lovitz. So if you like that guy, maybe you should give it a view. But this is basically the start of Rare's whole reputation of creating collectathons. It reached this apex in Donkey Kong 64, which is like at ridiculous levels, where each character has 100 bananas to collect. They have those blueprints, the fairies to take pictures of, and golden bananas, and all kinds of crazy crap. But in this game, there is a lot of collecting. You have to collect 100 notes per level, 10 puzzle pieces. They call them jiggies, and Mambo tokens, so you can pay the I think his name is Mambo. I don't remember. I don't know if he has the last name, but he transforms you into different animals. It gives you different abilities. It's a great game. The reason why I didn't put Banjo Tooie in this list is because Banjo Kazooie, every world in this game is really, really interesting, except for maybe Rusty Bucket Bay, which I feel is maybe a little too difficult. Not difficult, but just annoying in general. But it has a lot of cool worlds. It has a desert world, a haunted house level, and the last level of the game is really interesting. Click Clock Wood, I think, is the name, where there are 4 doors at the beginning of the level, and each one represents a season, and you kind of they kind of affect each other in a way. Like you can go to I think you go to the fall level first. I don't really remember, but you kind of see an egg in a nest, and then if you go to the spring, you'll see a baby eagle, and then if you go to the summer, it's a full eagle, and you can kind of see the progression by that, because when it's a baby, you feed it a lot of worms so it can grow strong for the next season. It's just really cool. It's a really experimental level. I haven't seen that in any sort of platformer. It has a lot of witty dialogue too, like while you're in the overworld. The main antagonist in the game, Gruntilda, will constantly shout like limericks at you and the rhyme, and it's just really neat. This was back when Rare was probably at their peak, and you can just tell they were having a lot of fun with their games, unlike now where they're basically forced to make Connect crap like Connect Sports, and it's unfortunate, but this is a great game. But one of the cool things about reading about old games is reading the kind of the artwork in the back of the box and stuff like that, and it's just funny to see the tagline, "Action and puzzles and bears, oh my." That's so cheesy and so right for this kind of game. And I'll also read the first sentence. It says, "Trouble brews when Gruntilda and the witch captures the unbearably," get it, beautiful cub. It's just stuff like that. It's great. You don't see, games have gotten a lot more like serious in tone, so you'll never see stuff like that again, unfortunately. But this is just a great game. It's a great platformer. Don't listen to the Rare haters who don't like their N64 output. It's a great game, and I'll also be talking about another Rare game later. Next one is something I'm sure everyone has played at this point, Super Mario 64. I mean, what else can I say about this game? It's just so impressive, just based on the fact that There was nothing like this before it came out. And Nintendo got it right immediately. Like, I mean, they pretty much set the standard with like camera controls and you know, just that, just the way the 3D environment works. And I mean, it's all in this game basically. They got it on their first try. It's just, I mean, even the beginning of the game where you're just outside of the castle, there's so much you can do. You can just climb trees and go swimming and, you know, just jump around. It's just a really, really cool world. And just the worlds are really interesting, except for the later levels, admittedly. Like, there's a rainbow ride level, which is kind of annoying because the camera isn't... It's good usually, but sometimes there are like some hitches where, you know, you can blame your deaths on cameras. And also like this clock level, which is annoying. I don't know, but the earlier levels are really interesting, and it just still feels great to control Mario. They did release this on the DS, but you had to use the D-pad, which is clearly not what this game was made for. But with the 3DS, since regular DS games are compatible with the control stick on the 3DS, you can actually control them with that now, so it's slightly better. Still not great though. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this game too much. It's just something, you know, everyone has played, and I will say that this probably was my favorite Mario game for a while. But Super Mario Galaxy came out, and I'd say that's just a better game than this overall. That just blew me away in every regard. So I'd say this is still a top 3 or 4 Mario game in general. It's pretty close with Mario 3 and Mario World. But yeah, let's move on to the next game, number 3. The rare game I alluded to earlier, Conkers Bad Fur Day. This is one of the most fascinating games I've ever come across, because I kind of got my first glimpse of Conker in Diddy Kong Racing, where Conker was a playable character, and he was actually a really cute, you know, fun, loving character back then. And based on that game, I got Conker's Pocket Tales, the Game Boy Color game, which is terrible, by the way. And it's also starring Conker, the happy-go-lucky squirrel. And then when it came to this, the N64 version, I remember going to IGN 64 back in the day, maybe in 1999 or 2000, probably 2000. And I saw the box art for the game. It said rated M. I was like, is this is this an error? Is this like a misprint? Because I don't know. It was just such an odd thing, especially considering that there weren't many M-rated games on the N64 to begin with. Even something like GoldenEye was rated T for some reason. And something like Ocarina of Time was rated E, despite, you know, some of the violence there, and the Great Fairies, which are pretty much naked. But anyway, yeah, this is a really, really odd game, and its development history is storied in that originally this was supposed to be just like a generic rare platformer with tons of collecting and a really happy squirrel. But then, I guess because of criticisms at a trade show like E3 or something, I don't know which one it was, they changed the game and kind of took it in the opposite direction, where it has a lot of, I wouldn't say mature themes, since, you know, fart jokes and stuff aren't that mature, but, you know, it has a lot of drinking in it, it has a lot of swearing, and just a lot of, you know, extreme profanity, or not profanity, whatever, you know what I'm saying. Basically, it's starring Conker, who has a really bad hangover, and he's kind of lost, and he comes across a lot of crazy shit along the way. It's kind of like a commentary on video games at the time. I don't know, it's just a really, really fun game, just because he comes across a lot of like weird instances, and you know, like a sunflower with boobs and a bee, and they have sex, and it's great. This is one of the funniest games that's ever been made, and there aren't that many funny games in general, even Something like from Double Fine, which I personally consider an overrated developer. They don't really make they claim to make funny games, and they're not that funny. But this is just a really great game, really self-referential, and it's just a really. I keep saying really. This is just a great game. It's very unique, and they actually did remake this on Xbox, and I'm not sure why, but they actually censored it more. I think they censored the words like bitch and a few other words, and it kind of puzzles me in a way because the N64 version has more swearing. I guess Nintendo let more of it slide. I'm not sure how that happened. Especially when considering Xbox is supposed to be like a dude bro, a man's console. Not really sure what happened there. That's still a pretty good port though. It looks beautiful for an Xbox game, but I'd still consider the N64 version the best just because it has uncensored content and yeah, pretty much that's pretty much the only reason why I picked this. It's actually crept up in value recently. The cartridge will probably cost you about $30. I was fortunate enough to grab this game when it was cheap, mainly because a lot of retailers didn't carry the game, so it was on clearance in a lot of places. But yeah, I highly recommend this game. It's very unique, and it's not like other Rare platformers. The next two, you can probably guess what they are. The first one, well, the second one, is Majora's Mask. This came out in the year 2000, I believe, and I'm really glad they made this game, just because, I'm sure a lot of people wish they made like an Ocarina of Time 2 instead of this game, but this is, if they did make a second Ocarina of Time, it would have been rushed anyway, like this game was. This technically was a rushed game. The idea was to make a game in 1.5 years or 2 years before the N64 finally died. They wouldn't have been able to make a proper Ocarina sequel in that amount of time. Besides, it probably wouldn't have been as good as Ocarina of Time. But this game it's almost as good, but it's separate. So you got two really cool experiences on one console with Ocarina and Majora's Mask. So I'm really glad they made this. It's one thing that's unique to this Zelda game compared to others is that it has a really kind of dark. It has dark tones. There's kind of this kind of looming impending doom at all times. There's always a timer going off. You technically have 3 days to. That's the controversy. There are 3 days until the world ends, and it's kind of tough to market because people kind of latch onto that. They'll say, "Oh, I don't like being rushed. I don't want that timer." But I think that's why some people still don't like it to this day. I think people always latch on to marketing. They'll like in Super Mario Sunshine. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to be a janitor and wash walls or whatever." That's not what the game is about. That's just what the marketing angle was. But in this game, there is a timer, but you can always like reverse time and go back to the first day. So there is this feeling of impending doom, but it's not like you only have 3 days and if you don't make it in time, it's a game over or something. But one element that's obviously the most prominently featured one in this game is the ability to collect masks, and they kind of give you different attributes. Like there's a bunny mask that makes you go faster, and there's a Goron mask that makes you turn into a Goron, which is really cool. And you weren't able to do that in other games. There's a Zora mask and stuff like that. It's just a really really great game. It has a really cool story too, where there's a kind of a skull kid. He has no friends, and he comes across this mask and he becomes evil. And I don't know, it's just I really like Skull Kid. I think he's a great character. I hope they expand on his story in Ocarina of Time 3DS, because he's in that game too, just not featured prominently in the original. But I hope they expand on that and kind of bridge it into this game a little bit more. The music is really great. You listen to like the the Giants theme or the Song of Healing is really great, and you also get a really cool reward if you collect all the masks. It makes you really powerful and makes the final boss fight a lot easier. And you can also use it against, just the regular bosses. You can revisit bosses in this game and just use that mask, and it's really cool. I just wish you could use it more. I mean, they give you this really powerful thing that you can barely use after the fact. But it's a really great game, and I wish they'd make something like this again. It looks like they keep trying to capture the magic of Ocarina, and they keep failing in the last couple of console Zeldas, even though I really like those too. But hopefully Skyward Sword is a bit different. Alright, there are some tough technical difficulties, so I'm going to have to redo my number one game, which is obvious at this point, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This is pretty much unanimously the best game of all time, just based on, reader polls and, just regular gaming sites like IGN. I think their favorite game is Super Mario Brothers, but this is definitely up there. But then there's also like those GameFAQs polls, not very reputable. GameFAQs has problems, but even more cynical websites like NeoGAF, their number one game of all time is also Ocarina of Time. So, I mean, there's definitely a good reason for that. This is just one of the best adventures. Well, it is the best adventure ever made, in my opinion. And to me, I like this more than any movie or book or whatever. So I do read a lot of books and I do watch a lot of movies. So it's not like I don't. It's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, a lot of has been said about this game over the years. So I'm just gonna kind of highlight some of the things I like most about this game. Let's talk about the music first. It's great. It especially like the temple music, like the Forest Temple. It's very evocative. All the temple music is evocative of the theme they're trying to convey. But in the Forest Temple, it's kind of this creepy music, like you're lost in a forest or something. And in the Fire Temple, which is basically like a worshiping place for the Gorons. If you have the gold cartridge, it has like Muslim chanting, which kind of definitely makes it seem like it's an actual like worshiping place, and it's definitely a lot better on the gold cartridge when compared to the regular gray cart. What you're seeing right here is the collector's edition / the gold cartridge version. So, and then for the Water Temple, as you can imagine, it kind of evokes this like watery, like mysterious place. You'll probably hear the music over and over again on your first playthrough, just because the Water Temple is pretty difficult. At least it was for me when I was like 8 or 9. I hear a lot of people complaining about it now, so I guess it was hard for most people as well. And then for the Shadow Temple, it's kind of like there's this dark, eerie music, and it's kind of creepy. And a lot of people say they get scared when they enter the Shadow Temple. They won't even play it. And then for the Spirit Temple, you kind of get this like Egyptian-esque music. I don't know if it actually is Egyptian, but it kind of conveys some of the themes in that dungeon, like these hieroglyphic suns and all that. It's really cool, and all the Ocarina tunes in general are really, really great. Kind of a testament to the sound programming, just because the sound chip on the N64 admittedly isn't that good. There aren't many memorable / great N64 music out there, unfortunately. But yeah, another thing I liked was just kind of the dichotomy between young Link and the adult Link, and kind of the world as the world changes around him. Like in the beginning, he's kind of naive, and he meets a lot of like these like father figures / mother figures, like Saria. I think that's her name. It might be Saria. I'll say Saria, and like Darunia, the kind of the Goron leader, and Princess Ruto, the princess of the Zoras, and people like that, and then as you get older and travel through time, they're kind of guardians at that point. You have to save them, and it's a really great relationship between him as a kid and him as an adult with these sages, and I also like how when he's young, like everything is all happy-go-lucky. Like when you go to the market, people are dancing, people are happy, and then when you when you go forward in time, that place is basically like a desert land. It's like filled with zombies and no one's there, and the whole world is like in destruction, and it's great. I wish people would play with that whole time mechanic more, just so you can just kind of see the change, in the landscape, based on time. I think some games do that, but not many. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about here? Oh yeah, just one of my favorite scenes in the game. After you get the 3 spiritual stones as a kid, and you approach the castle. There's kind of like dark clouds looming over the castle as you get nearer, and then it starts to rain, and you can see Zelda trying to escape the castle on her horse, and then right afterwards you can see Ganondorf, the antagonist, obviously, on his horse trying to chase her. But then he comes across you, and then he tells you to fuck off, basically, and he hits you with one of his energy balls, and he proceeds to chase after her. Just a really great scene. Oh yeah, she also throws an ocarina into the water, Zelda. I mean, it's just a great scene. It's very like moody and dark, and it just you don't see that in any of the other Zelda games really since then. It's just a really great, sets the tone for the rest of the game, basically. Another scene I really liked in the game was near the beginning when you beat the Deku Tree. I think it's the Deku Tree. I don't know. Obviously the games don't have voice acting, so I don't really know how they're pronounced. But when you leave Kokori Forest for the first time, you see Saria on the bridge, and she hands you that fairy ocarina, and you're just a young boy. You don't know how to take that, so he just kind of runs away. It's just a great scene in general. One of my favorites, and of course you have to talk about the ending. Just it's a great boss battle between you and Ganondorf. It's actually kind of easy. It's based on the final boss of the Forest Temple, a Phantom Ganon. Basically, you just kind of, he throws an energy ball at you, and you have to hit it with your sword, and then you kind of go back and forth like ping pong or whatever. And then when it finally does hit him, you kind of hit him with a light arrow. But it's just a great fight, just because the music is really intense, and you kind of get the sense that you're inferior to him just because he's above you. And it's just a really like intense boss fight, even if it's not the hardest. And then obviously after that you face he transforms into Ganon, and then you face him. And then the end credits are really, really great. Probably the best credits there ever was. Kind of shows you how epic your adventure was. It kind of shows you all the locales you've been throughout the game. And it kind of has a conclusion with you setting Navi, your fairy, free. And you also kind of turn back into a kid again permanently, which sets the stage for Majora's Mask. And it's a great ending, and great music for the credits too. It's just it's amazing. And one final thing I'll say about this game, just because you probably heard about these things like a million times by now, but there's this thing that I don't think many Zelda fans have encountered. But after you get the 3 spiritual stones and you go into Zelda's castle after viewing that cutscene I mentioned earlier, and you go to the back alley where the woman lost her dog and wanted you to go get it back for her. There's this soldier, this injured soldier, sitting on his back against the wall, and when you talk to him, he actually dies before your eyes. It's really dark, and they don't do that anymore in the other Zelda games, like that kind of dark. Like they don't actually show death really in Zelda games anymore. I guess it's kind of like a product of the time where kids have to be coddled and there's no death or anything like that. Maybe I just sound like an old guy at this point, but it's a really cool moment in the game. I think you guys should check that out if you haven't already, on your next playthrough. And I actually do play this game every year, except for last year. I didn't play it just because I knew the 3DS version was coming out. I wanted to save my playthrough for that. I can't wait for that game. But yeah, I spent about 9 minutes on this game alone, so I guess I didn't do a good enough job of being concise. Not like I ever am, but I hope I provided some insight on these games. I hope you guys check these out if you haven't played them. I know they're all pretty popular, and
think all of them are Nintendo published too. But like I said, if you guys want me to make it like a hidden gems video or whatever, I'll do that. Definitely are a lot of interesting N64 games that no one has ever played. Like you can see some of the origins of Rockstar Games and Sucker Punch. Of course, they'd never really published on Nintendo again, really, except for maybe on portables. But yeah, those are really interesting games. I'll talk about in another video eventually. So I hope you like this video, and yeah, peace out.